We are here with the one and only, very fantastic Shelby Ryburn, who this is actually my second interview I've gotten to do with Shelby this month because we did a private session with her all about her KW story about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And yeah, right after family reunion. And that will be in our member portal for those of you that are KW Talent members. You'll be able to see it there. So Shelby, first of all, thank you for your time today. I know everyone's excited for the session. And tell us just a little bit about you so they have a little context about where you come from in this wonderful conversation that we're about to have in regards to onboarding and expectations with our people.
Sure. My name is Shelby Ryburn. I am in Greater Sacramento, California. I've been in real estate for a total of 11 and a half years, but those were a little bit disjointed in that. I started my career at 20 years old in a property management company that I spent 4 to 5 years in, kind of learning the front end, back end, and every side. And then fell into real estate right after that through a relationship and was in that business for about a year and a half. And my KW story will tell you a little bit why I chose to leave my journey in real estate many years ago. And that was actually early 2007. Right before the crash. So I had actually no indication that that was coming. And then I got recruited into corporate America. So I spent a lot of years at a company called Northwestern Mutual. They're a Fortune 100 financial services firm, and spent many of those years in Southern California, and then was asked to take on an opportunity in the Carolinas where I ran their core four. So their core four was recruiting all of their sales reps, also 100% commission sales reps, training them, their internship program, and then their leadership development program for 10 offices in the Carolinas. And so I am very corporately trained. I spent 7 years in that environment, did very well in that environment, burnt out in that environment, and needed to reset when I got pregnant with my first son. So came back into real estate June 1st of 2014, was a team leader for 3 years, built a very thriving, successful market center that wound up in the top 10 because of the talent that I had around me in the other roles in the market center. And then ultimately moved back to California, which is, again, where I am from, and stayed on the leadership path for quite some time. My last year in leadership was as a regional area director, and then I resigned from that. And during that time, I had met my business partners, Brian Martell and Ricky O'Neill, and we formed the More Real Estate Group because we all had experience just from kind of different walks of real estate and came together. And we have a team now of 24 people serving Greater Sacramento, California. We've been together for about a little bit more than 4 years, 4.5 years or so.
All right. So let's talk about Northwest Mutual, because I think that that's an important aspect when people look at this of when we talk about onboarding and expectations. And onboarding is usually our first misstep that we make with our people that sets us up with this slippery slope of doom, right? Like where we just can't get them back engaged in the business and doing what they said they were going to do or producing the way we wanted to. And usually that's not actually their fault. Frequently it's us. Because we fail on the onboarding and the expectations. So let's talk about Northwest Mutual on there. And you said you were also working with 100% sales-based commission folks there.
Mm-hmm.
How did it look different inside of a Fortune 100 company versus what you see in your typical real estate agent training materials or onboarding that a team might have with something?
So I quickly learned really in my first year in the team leader role that if Northwestern Mutual and Keller Williams could have a baby, that would be like an explosive company. Not that both companies aren't in their own right, but I was very fortunate to be trained in a corporate environment where if you didn't do your job well, you don't get to keep your job. Right. And as a real estate agent, there's so much autonomy, and we are all attracted to the independence of that. But I think that oftentimes we don't necessarily lean into implementation. We hear things, we learn things, we show up to training, but we don't actually create an implementation plan. And in corporate America, you don't have any other objective, then implementing, or you don't keep your job. So, I was young, I was in my 20s and early 30s. And so I was able to learn things the right way, which really led me to have a little bit of a leg up when I came into real estate, both in the team leader role and then in the OP role, and then ultimately in the rainmaker role of growing and developing a team. And I will say, if I can back up just a little bit, I think that successful onboarding starts with having a successful candidate. So at Northwestern Mutual, what we call here at KW as career visioning, meaning making sure that there's alignment between the person joining you and who you are, we called that the mutual fit selection process there, where we had multiple interviews that people had to get to earn an opportunity with us. I think that their onboarding will 100% be broken by week number 2 if you're starting with the wrong person because you didn't make sure there was a fit and an alignment of who they are and who you are. And then clearly articulate standards. So our offer letter has expectations for success written down based on what we know best practices are. But if I don't articulate that, Liz, to the person that's joining me, then I've already not done my part because I haven't set them up to understand why standards are in place and what that will do for them. So I think that we need to not necessarily forget the first step is selecting the right type of people that are in alignment with the vision and the values of your organization. Because if you don't give that attention, then you'll probably already not have luck in onboarding unless you just get lucky, right?
Right. That is a matter of luck at that point. That is, and
100%.
sometimes that happens, not very frequent.
But not consistently. It absolutely can happen, but not consistently. So
So,
I think it's really important to do that first.
well, so let's look at that, right? Like I always ask people when they have a failed hire, and with my coaching clients and our KW talent members, we look at it and we say, well, where did it go wrong? And they're like, oh, I just don't know. I did everything. And I'm like, okay, so let's look if we really did everything. And
Yeah, sure.
I say it's one of 3 questions. Question number 1, and it goes to what you just said, Shelby, is did I absolutely hire the right person for the right job? Yes or no?
Yes.
Because it's not just about the right person, it's was I even hiring for the right role, right? Like, did
Well,
I?
and the book, The Energy Bus, talks about that. Like, did we put them on the wrong seat on the bus?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. Did I hire the right person in the right role? Yes or no?
Yeah.
If we say yes, which is probably pretty rare, then we go to the second question. The second question is then, did I do everything possible to onboard them, train them correctly, and be clear on what we needed out of this job, right? To train them and hold them accountable in there.
Yeah, you
Then
bet.
the answer is usually no, right? So that falls back on us because again, this is an us thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But in the rare case we answer yes, it's did I then do everything possible to coach them and hold them accountable to that?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's our third step that we tend to go wrong there. And if
Yeah.
somebody answers yes to all of those things, and we're still like, hey, I don't know, that something's wrong with that person. No, there's not. Chances are you missed it in the first question. You probably still hired the wrong person or for the wrong position, right?
Yeah.
And I think
Absolutely.
that's so crucial that you led with that it's like, it doesn't matter how well you onboard if you don't actually hire the right one.
That's exactly right. And I also think that anytime we do have to let someone go, because no matter how well we do in that process, let's say that we are able to answer all 3 questions with a yes. If it doesn't work, which does happen on occasion, right? I always ask myself, did I do my part? Because I know that they may not be doing their part, but as long as I've done my part, then I need to help them find an opportunity that is better suited for them. But if I didn't do my part, then I better start that onboarding process over so that I can lay my head down at night and know that I did my part, because that's what I'm responsible for. So success is just as much my organization's responsibility as it is the talent that we hired to show up and do their part, right?
So let's assume we hire the right person for the right role, right?
Yep.
Got it. We're
Yep.
starting. It's week 1. What does onboarding success look like in those first days and the expectations that we put clearly in there? What do you guys do?
So aside from the 6 weeks that we weren't in the office when COVID was announced, we are an in-person team. Now, I understand that there are many successful teams that don't necessarily have to run their organization in person, but the dynamic of who we are, again, we have to recruit to who we are, is we are an in-person team. So onboarding starts with them understanding what that looks like. So we show up every day and we huddle at 9 a.m. and we get started at 9:15 and we lead gen till 12, and then we take appointments or meetings after that. So onboarding has a lot to do with making sure that they attach to our, I guess, for lack of a better term, the schedule that we have set up for expectations for success. But we also very closely follow the 30, 60, 90 that we learn on the back end of career visioning. Because if we've hired the right talent, now it's our job to help them succeed as well as they can in those first 90 days. Because typically, what you see in the first 90 days is what you will see beyond that or not see beyond that. And so I think that one of the things that I learned is my mind is very full. For anyone that knows me, I am always full of ideas and action plans and thoughts. And so one of the mistakes I made initially was making the 30, 60, 90 too intense, meaning like, in
Too
the first
detailed, too
30
many
days, we're going
tasks.
to do these 73 things. And I had to learn, like, really in the first 30 days, we need to accomplish these 10 things, right? And a lot of that is just mindset, and then learning, and then showing up, and accountability to that, and then doing the work that we've identified. So one of the things I think that is most critical if you're hiring an agent, this obviously doesn't necessarily have to do with operations, but in operations, client care, VA, whoever you are, whatever role you hold, you will have a really clear 30, 60, 90. But if it's an agent, I need to help them understand what they can do to win every day. And I think that some people come in and they go, oh, I want to close 12 units my first year, or 18 units my first year, or 24 units their
They
first
all
year.
want to make $100,000. Everyone wants
Right.
to make $100,000. Yeah.
So if
Whatever.
that's the case, the MREA book is the roadmap for that. And I'm not trying to just sensationalize that or be the KW advocate, but the reality is everybody that comes here that says, I want to make $100,000, we just have to pull the MREA conversion rates out and go, okay, so let's go through the economic model and figure out what that means and how many buy side and how many sell side we need to do, and then figure out what that means in daily activity, so that when you come in every day, you're not having to guess what it takes to make $100,000. You know that 45 dials and 9 contacts will get you to $100,000. And that way, when you go home at night, as long as you know that you did 45, 9, you should feel really good about your progress. And you don't have to worry about the outcomes. We're going to train you how to do a buyer consult. We're going to train you how to do a listing presentation. We're going to train you how to generate leads and what to say. But at the end of the day, you also have to do the work. So I think that the 30, 60, 90 should always be first and foremost structured with making sure they are clear on what it looks like to win every day, because anyone who's trying to swallow an ocean, won't get very far, right? So we want to make it as simple as possible, so that then they can just focus on making sure their calendar is set up for success. So one of the things we do in the 30, 60, 90, and it's really in those first 2 weeks, is we don't call it sales school, but think of, and we did this at Northwestern Mutual, sales school. If you get hired, you have to learn the business, right? If you go into a market center, you're going to go into Ignite. So we do the same thing on our team. We do 2 weeks of sales school, if you will, and then the rest of it is very activity driven. And then there's a layer of accountability and a mentor and a coach that they get to meet with along the way.
I think that's an important thing for us to highlight and go into, like, first of all, you went from, here's my 75 things I want you to do in your first 30 days to, here's my 10 that are results and activity based that I'm going to hold you accountable to.
Yeah.
So, if we dissect that, one of the common mistakes we see go way wrong when people onboard is, one of the activities on that list is, and get your MLS set up, and get your
Yes.
email set up, and meet the team, right?
Yes.
Now, while I understand that all of those things must take place, right? They must, right? Like, that's what you have administrative checklists for, where your admin will walk this new person through the system, right? Like, that's an administrative checklist.
Yeah.
That is not a 30-day results driven, is this person doing the job and learning the job that I need them to learn? And those are two different things. The task driven of what needs to happen for us to integrate this person into our systems, and the what am I holding this person accountable to know if I'm going to let them stay here another 30 days are two very, very different things and tend to
Absolutely.
blend those.
And so for our team, and this is because of my training at Northwestern Mutual, you don't start with us until you've submitted your Project 200, which is the 200 names, phone numbers, email addresses, etc., of people that you know. Because again, that is for them. I can't help them succeed if they're not coming prepared with their sphere and their database. And then secondarily, MLS board, all those things have to be done before you start with us. You don't have a day one. You're right. That is absolutely separate. If on day one you show up and make a phone call in training and you get an appointment, but you don't have your MLS, how can you be successful at that appointment,
You're
right?
having a bad day. That's not
Yeah.
gonna go well.
Yeah, that's right. So the 30, 60, 90 doesn't actually start until that is done. The Project 200 has to be submitted and you've got to be a member of the board in the MLS.
So let's look at things that might be a little unique. Is there anything that you guys do in terms of not just setting them up for success, but like we're bringing this person into our world to be part of our team, and it is important that people feel welcome and that they're introduced. And so is this the person that sits over there in the corner in your cube and it's like, don't talk to anybody until you get your cube, you're done, you don't come out of your cube? Or is there a way that you guys bring this person into the fold of, we're welcoming you into the new environment and we're excited you're here?
Yeah. So I think we had to learn that lesson the wrong way because Liz, you know a lot about our team, but we have a really strong culture. We just took our team to Mexico to do a mission trip and serve together. Like these are the kinds of things that define us as our culture. And so we had to learn the hard way about 3.5 years ago when someone joined us and gave us feedback that they very much felt like they were on the outside, right? So number one, we made sure that part of the CV process includes the group interview. And we were finding that sometimes it was like 2 or 3 of the team members showed up versus like understanding that that's the first way to make a connection with the team is everybody needs to be at that group interview so that the person being interviewed feels like they know us and we feel like we know them, not 2 or 3 people, but everybody. So that there's already a common bond coming in. And then on top of that, what we layered in is I took another thing from my time with Northwestern Mutual. And at the end of sales training, because they're essentially just sitting in a classroom those first 2 weeks, right? We just want to equip them with as much learning as possible. We do what's called prospecting day. And prospecting day is where the new person, and usually we bring in at least 2 at a time, will go out into the universe and schedule a bunch of appointments and, try to get a bunch of referrals during the day. Like we have a checklist of things that they do during prospecting day, and we make it a race. So at the end of prospecting day by 4 p.m., they have to meet us at a local restaurant and the entire team is there cheering them on because they could have just gotten kicked in the teeth all day. It could have gotten rejected a bunch during that
Yeah,
day.
your first full day of prospecting is probably a pretty rough day as a brand new agent. Like
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
thinking back to my traumatic days as a 23-year-old real estate agent in 2006 of, oh my God, like I'm having PTSD right now thinking of this. Like that's hard. You
Yeah,
just
it is.
forward repetitively on those first days.
It is. And a lot of our prospecting day is very much outside sales, not inside sales. And so at the end of that, we're all literally standing in the restaurant, like music is on, we're hooting and hollering as they rush in the door and they get actually cash for how many referrals they got. And it's a race against the other person to see who got more, et cetera, et cetera. But we just celebrate the victory that they've just graduated sales school. And I think that was really helpful because it enabled them to feel like the team was there supporting them. And then they just get to tell their story of the day. And it just really created a lot more cohesiveness a lot earlier on.
I think that that's one of those things that people take for granted in teams, right? Like, especially small businesses are like a family. We work in very intimate settings where, right, even you guys are 24 people. That is still a very small business where it is everyone knows everybody. They know the quirks, they know the personalities, they know when someone walks in what they're wearing of, oh, that person's having a bad day, I should stay out of their way today, or that person's having a bad day, I should go up and talk to them.
Yeah.
The new guy doesn't know any of that. Being
Yeah.
a new person in a small business that has that kind of intimacy and understanding of each other is a lot like if your coworker that you have a casual relationship with, who you know but not know well, invites you to a party that night, and it turns out it's their family reunion or their high school reunion, right? Like you barely have a connection with this one person, and then you are placed into something where you are absolutely on the outside. That's
Yeah.
and that's a crucial part about integrating somebody in. It's not just about how do I set them up for success for business, it's how do I set them up for success to win inside my team too.
Yeah, you bet. But I also think though, as critical as that is, if for some reason someone doesn't make it past the 90 days, or maybe they did, but several months later, they're struggling, we'll use a performance improvement plan to make sure that we help them recharge, because to our agents who've been with us for a long time, if there are no consequences to the standards, then they just become suggestions. And when there are only suggestions in a team environment, then productivity is by default going to go down. And by the way, no productivity equals nobody's making money, equals
Everyone
emotions,
leaves. Yeah.
equal drama, equals culture, right? So I think that that's one of the things that we have failed at, maybe not holding the standards for people who um, fall a little bit too long. It's one thing to have maybe not a great month, but if you have not a great quarter, we better be doing something to help them get back on their feet. Because you can't have standards for some and not for others. That's the first way to ruin a team culture too.
So let's talk about just expectations on that culture, right? Because I think that's one of the places that we miss. So we've talked about the standards, the expectations, the onboarding. What about the expectations on how somebody shows up and how somebody treats others? What do you
Yeah,
guys do with that? Because culture is such a crucial part of who you guys are at More.
yeah, you bet. Again, for those of you that are on the call, I apologize that you don't know us intimately, but if you were to come hang out with us for a week, we're a hugging team. We're the whole, like, if you don't get 7 hugs a day, you're just weird type of mo thing. Again, we serve in Mexico together. We have very high attendance at family reunion and mega camp, and we do not pay for that for our teams, by the way. They just go because that's the culture of our team. And so we did have one gentleman who really had a hard time adapting to our culture. He made it through our process, checked all the boxes, actually was very respectful and kind to me. But when we weren't watching as leaders, sometimes there was a lack of respect for others. And again, if we don't address that, then that becomes the standard on our team, is that we allow disrespect or unkind words. And so it doesn't happen very often to us, because when I say we make people go through a CV process to join us, like, I'm not kidding, 7 interviews sometimes, minimally 5. And if I'm like not ready, then I'll ask them to go through a couple more just to really make sure. And that usually serves us well. Our top agent, Katie, will tell you that she went through 7 interviews to join us, and she's a superstar. But I think that you'll have more success maintaining culture without even a whole lot of effort if you've selected properly from the beginning. At the same time, Brian and Ricky and I, as owners, are very aware of energy. And I think culture is also energy. And so we have team incentives, like we have sales incentives. We have 2 trips a year that people can qualify for. We, at this last team meeting on Monday, a few days ago, handed out $500 cash for someone that achieved an incentive that we had in place for the end of the calendar year last year. We do award ceremonies just like a market center does. We do QBRs, which is a quarterly business review at the end of every quarter, and we kind of just get out of our environment and go do it off site. So I think it's really important to have expectations and standards for lead generation, for appointments, and we have all of that, but also to add in things that fuel the team. So sometimes we'll just go out for a hike for a day at the end of a quarter or things like that, just to make sure that we understand that culture is both productivity and relationship. And when you're too high on either one, like if you have an environment that is all challenge and no support, it's going to be the basketball team that I quit when I made varsity my freshman year of high school because the coach was an absolute challenge,
I struggle with
right?
that. Well, what's the word you're going to,
I was
you're like,
like,
oh, I gotta come up with a word
we're
here.
going here. Or if you're on a team or of any type, whether it's an athletic team from the past or a market center or a team like ours, and it's all support, then sure, you might feel loved, but you're probably not making any money, right? So when I see someone walk in the door and they're wearing their emotions, first thing I'll do is I'll pull them in. Or if I'm set to coach them and something's going on, one of, I think, most the significant markers in my history as a coach is one of my agents walked in and I am telling you, there wasn't a smile for miles. Okay. Not on the surface, not in the soul. And I said, how are you? And she goes, fine. I said, well, when are you going to let your face know? Right. And she was like, and so all of a sudden she started tearing up and I closed that binder. Like, do I have a template to coach people through and talk about numbers and talk about their pipeline and help them, with their skills? Absolutely. But at that moment, that was irrelevant. I shut the binder and I said, what's going on? And my partners and I ended up sending her to Landmark Forum, which some of you may or may not know about, but Landmark Forum is like this conference thing that helps you sort of unearth stuff that you might be holding on to from the past that is affecting your future. And come to find out, she had some stuff that she was holding on to that felt like weights on her every day she walked into the building. And when she was able to unearth that, she came back and told us all about it. She was lit up like the 4th of July. She had her best 4 months in production right after that. So I think culture is also recognizing not that we have a team of 24 people, but that person isn't okay. And we better get to the bottom of it to help them get to a better place. So I think it's both individualized attention, but also like, team camaraderie, team opportunity, team incentives. And we work just as hard as that stuff as we do on making sure they know exactly what type of activity they should be doing every day and holding them accountable to that.
So if we had to go with the moral of the story, what's the thing that you want to make sure people heard in this last 30 minutes? Like, what's the aha, the takeaway, the golden nugget that you want to put the bow on for everything here?
So I think I would simplify it as much as I can by saying, again, standards without consequences are merely suggestions. And if the word consequences can be harsh, but if you don't have a plan for yourself or others, then it's going to be really difficult outside of luck to succeed long-term and have a happy and thriving career in life. So if you paid attention, we have a plan for selecting people. I didn't say recruiting, I said selecting. We have a plan for the first 90 days, and we have a plan on an ongoing basis to have an environment of challenge and support. And it's written and it's articulated and it's agreed upon. So I think that is what I would say is we can't wing it. Your talent will only get you so far if you just participate in this, organization called Uyghurs Anonymous. Like, you have to have a plan. It makes everything easier, really, because then we just wake up and we get to do the plan. And then outside of that, we just get to build relationships and make sure that we're doing our part to help people thrive. So I think that's what I would say is just have a written plan for every part of your business and then follow it.
Well, and here's some good news for everybody on there, right? Where Shelby's looking at and saying, like, have a plan, follow it. You can start with your 2-inch domino. Like, it doesn't have to be this overhaul. Just start with the 2-inch domino. Just start moving in the right direction. First plan. Well, if not career visioning people, well, guess what? Get to career visioning, join KW Talent, get your career visioning under your belt, do your learning, and start implementing the process. It doesn't have to be the massive undertaking, right? This didn't happen for Shelby in a week. She didn't get this done in a week. This is a process that is, as you heard during her story, ever evolving, which is important to know, right? Like, None of us get it right 100% of the time. We learn on it. And I think the next thing to look at there is, right, what are you going to do today? Go to your calendar, right? If you are like, hey, I got something I got to do here, what am I going to do today? What's the thing, the time that I'm going to put in to move forward? And lastly, for those of you that are looking at it going, well, I've got some people and I onboarded them, but they're not doing great. They're off track. You can join us for our April learning session. It is on the reset of how we get a team member back on track. You will all get the email for it. You will get it in this one when you get the video recording. The reset on how to actually structure and get a team member back on track is very, very important, because chances are we screwed something up in the first place. That's just the way that it is. Shelby,
And that,
anything you want to leave anybody else with today?
I would also say just a reminder to leverage Keller Williams as a company and KW Talent as an organization. There's not a soul who I've called who has done something, who I haven't called, who has done something before me that wasn't willing to give me their playbook, right? Like a lot of what we've created, I borrowed from someone else who did it before us. And so don't forget to raise your hand and be like, I want a copy of that. Like how many copies of things, Liz, like just go around our ecosystem that just get shared and then, you know, branded as something they can do in their own organization or in their own business. So just don't forget, like people are a big part of our success. Leverage them.
All right. I love it. Well, Shelby, thank you for your time. And everybody, thank you for still staying and hanging out with us this whole time. I know we ran over 5 minutes. And Shelby, I think I saw Sam jump in there behind you looking for you up there.
You did.
So thank you all again. Hopefully we'll see you on the reset. For those of you that are not our KW Talent members, we hope to have you join us and start spending more time in these types of conversations, this type of learning, and all the things Shelby's mentioning about. For those of you that already are, it's nice to see you again, and we will see you in your member portal. Everyone, have a great day.
Bye. Thanks, Liz. Bye, everyone.